the Korean People's Army constitutes the military forces of North Korea. Kim Jong-un is the Supreme Commander of the Korean People's Army, Chairman of Central Military Commission and National Defense Commission. The KPA consists of 5 branches: Ground Force, the Navy, the Air Force, the Strategic Rocket Forces, and the Special Operation Force. Also, the Worker-Peasant Red Guards come under control of the KPA. In 1971, Kim Il-sung directed that Military Foundation Day be changed from February 8 to April 25, the nominal day of establishment of his anti-Japanese guerrilla army in 1932, to recognize the supposedly indigenous Korean origins of the KPA and obscure its Soviet origin. An active arms industry had been developed to produce long-range missiles such as the Rodong-1. The KPA faces its primary adversaries, the Republic of Korea Armed Forces and United States Forces Korea, across the Korean Demilitarized Zone, as it has since the Armistice Agreement of July 1953. As of 2013, with 9,495,000 active, reserve, and paramilitary personnel, it is the largest military organization on Earth. This number represents nearly 40% of the population, and is the numeric equivalent of the entire population between ages 20 and 45. History: the Korean People's Army history began with the Korean Volunteer Army, which was formed in Yan'an, China, in 1939. The 2 individuals responsible for the army were Kim Da-bong and Mu Chong. At the same time, a school was established near Yan'an for training military and political leaders for a future independent Korea. By 1945, the KVA had grown to approximately 1,000 men, mostly Korean deserters from the Imperial Japanese Army. During this period, the KVA fought alongside the Chinese Communist forces from which it drew its arms and ammunition. After the defeat of the Japanese, the KVA accompanied the Chinese Communist forces into Manchuria, intending to gain recruits from the Korean population of Manchuria and then enter Korea. By September 1945, the KVA had a 2,500-strong force at its disposal. Just after World War II and during the Soviet Union's occupation of the part of Korea north of the 38th parallel, the Soviet 25th Army headquarters in Pyongyang issued a statement ordering all armed resistance groups in the northern part of the peninsula to disband on October 12, 1945. 2,000 Koreans with previous experience in the Soviet Army were sent to various locations around the country to organize constabulary forces with permission from Soviet military headquarters, and the force was created on October 21, 1945. The headquarters felt a need for a separate unit for security around railways, and the formation of the unit was announced on January 11, 1946. That unit was activated on August 15 of the same year to supervise existing security forces and creation of the National Armed Forces. Military institutes such as the Pyongyang Academy and the Central Constabulary Academy soon followed for education of political and military officers for the new armed forces. After the military was organized and facilities to educate its new recruits were constructed, the Constabulary Discipline Corps was reorganized into the Korean People's Army General Headquarters. The previously semi-official units became military regulars with distribution of Soviet uniforms, badges, and weapons that followed the inception of the headquarters. The State Security Department, a forerunner to the Ministry of People's Defense, was created as part of the Interim People's Committee on February 4, 1948. The formal creation of the Korean People's Army was announced on 4 days later on February 8, the day after the fourth plenary session of the FIOPLI Unregistered Trademarks Assembly approved the plan to separate the roles of the military and those of the police, 7 months before the government of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea was proclaimed on September 9, 1948. In addition, the Ministry of State for the People's Armed Forces was established, which controlled a Central Guard Battalion, 2 divisions, and an independent mixed and combined arms brigade. Conflicts and events. Before the outbreak of the Korean War, Joseph Stalin equipped the KPA with modern tanks, trucks, artillery, and small arms. During the opening phases of the Korean War in 1950, the KPA quickly drove South Korean forces south and captured Seoul, only to lose 70,000 of their 100,000-strong army in the autumn after U.S. amphibious landings at the Battle of Incheon and a subsequent drive to the Yalu River. On November 4, China openly staged a military intervention. On December 7, Kim Il-sung was deprived of the right of command of KPA by China. The KPA subsequently played a secondary minor role to Chinese forces in the remainder of the conflict. By the time of the armistice in 1953, the KPA had sustained 290,000 casualties and lost 90,000 men as POWs. In 1953, the Military Armistice Commission was able to oversee and enforce the terms of the armistice. The Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission, originally made up of delegations from Poland, Czechoslovakia and Hungary on the Communist side, and Sweden and Switzerland on the United Nations side, monitored the activities of the MAC. Soviet thinking on the strategic scale was replaced since December 1962 with a People's War concept. The Soviet idea of direct warfare was replaced with a Maoist war of attrition strategy. Along with the mechanization of some infantry units, more emphasis was put on light weapons, high-angle indirect fire, night fighting, and sea denial. Organization, Commission and Leadership. The primary path for command and control of the KPA extends through the National Defense Commission, which was led by its chairman Kim Jong-il until 2011, to the Ministry of People's Armed Forces and its General Staff Department. From there on, command and control flows to the various bureaus and operational units. A secondary path, to ensure political control of the military establishment, extends through the Workers' Party of Korea's Central Military Commission of the Workers' Party of Korea. Since 1990, numerous and dramatic transformations within the DPRK have led to the current command and control structure. The details of the majority of these changes are simply unknown to the world. What little is known indicates that many changes were the natural result of the deaths of the aging leadership, including Kim Il-sung, Minister of People's Armed Forces Oh Chin-yu and Minister of People's Armed Forces Choi Kwang. The vast majority of changes were undertaken to secure the power and position of Kim Jong-il. Formerly the National Defense Commission, from its founding in 1972, was part of the Central People's Committee, while the Ministry of the People's Armed Forces, from 1982 onward, was under direct presidential control. At the 18th session of the 6th Central People's Committee, held on May 23, 1990, the NDC became established as its own independent commission, rising to the same status as the CPC and not subordinated to it, as was the case before. Concurrent with this, Kim Jong-il was appointed first vice-chairman of the National Defense Commission. The following year, on December 24, 1991, Kim Jong-il was appointed Supreme Commander of the Korean People's Army. 4 months later, on April 20, 1992, Kim Jong-il was awarded the rank of Marshal, and his father, in virtue of being the KPA's founding Commander-in-Chief, became Grand Marshal as a result, and 1 year later he became the Chairman of the National Defense Commission, by now under Supreme People's Assembly control under the then 1992 Constitution as amended. Within the KPA, between December 1991 and December 1995, nearly 800 high officers received promotions and preferential assignments. 3 days after Kim Jong-il became Marshal, 8 generals were appointed to the rank of Vice Marshal. In April 1997, on the 85th anniversary of Kim Il-sung's birthday, Kim Jong-il promoted 127 general-grade officers. The following April he ordered the promotions of another 22 generals. Along with these changes, many KPA officers were appointed to influential positions within the Korean Workers' Party. These promotions continue today, simultaneous with the celebration of Kim Il-sung's birthday and the KPA anniversary celebrations every April, and since recently in July to honor the end of the Korean War. Under Kim Jong-il's leadership, political officers dispatched from the party monitored every move of a general unregistered trademark's daily life, according to analysts similar to the work of Soviet political commissars during the early and middle years of the military establishment. Today the KPA exercises full control of both the Politburo and the Central Military Commission of the WPK, the National Defense Commission, the KPA General Political and General Staff Departments and the Ministry of the People's Armed Forces, all having KPA representatives with a minimum general officer rank. Conscription and terms of service. North Korea has universal conscription for males and selective conscription for females with many pre- and post-service requirements. North Korea has a mandatory service that ranges between 3 and 5 years. Article 86 of the North Korean Constitution states, defending the fatherland is the supreme duty and honor of citizens. Citizens shall defend the fatherland and serve in the armed forces as prescribed by law. KPA soldiers serve 10 years of military service in the KPA, which also runs its own factories, farms and trading arms. Paramilitary organizations. The Young Red Guards are the youth cadet corps of the KPA for secondary level and university level students. Every Saturday, they hold mandatory 4-hour military training drills, and have training activities on and off campus to prepare them for military service when they turn 18 or after graduation, as well as for contingency measures in peacetime. Under the Ministry of People's Security and the wartime control of the Ministry of People's Armed Forces, and formerly the Korean People's Security Forces, the Korean People's Internal Security Forces forms the National Gendarmerie and Civil Defense Force of the KPA. The KPISF has its units in various fields like civil defense, traffic management, civil disturbance control, and local security. It has its own special forces units. The service shares the ranks of the KPA but wears different uniforms. Budget and commercial interests. The KPA's annual budget is approximately $6 billion. The U.S. Institute for Science and International Security reports that the DPRK may possess fissile material for around 2 to 9 nuclear warheads. The North Korean Chosōn'gŭl policy elevates the KPA to the primary position in the government and society. According to North Korea's state news agency, military expenditures for 2010 made up 15.8% of the state budget. Most analyses of North Korea unregistered trademark's defense sector, however, estimate that defense spending constitutes between 1/4 and 1/3 of all government spending. As of 2003, according to the International Institute of Strategic Studies, North Korea unregistered trademark's defense budget consumed some 25% of central government spending. In the mid-1970s and early 1980s, according to figures released by the Polish Arms Control and Disarmament Agency, between 32 and 38% of central government expenditures went towards defense. North Korea sells missiles and military equipment to many countries worldwide. In April 2009, the United Nations named the Korea Mining and Development Trading Corporation as North Korea's primary arms dealer and main exporter of equipment related to ballistic missiles and conventional weapons. It also named Korea Ryongbong as a supporter of North Korea's military-related sales. Historically, North Korea has assisted a vast number of revolutionary, insurgent and terrorist groups in more than 62 countries. A cumulative total of more than 5,000 foreign personnel have been trained in North Korea, and over 7,000 military advisors, primarily from the Reconnaissance Bureau, have been dispatched to some 47 countries. Some of the organizations which received North Korean aid include the Polisario Front, Janatha Vimuktthi Peramuna, the Communist Party of Thailand, the Palestine Liberation Organization and the Army of the Guardians of the Islamic Revolution. The Zimbabwean 5th Brigade received its initial training from KPA instructors. North Korean troops allegedly saw combat during the Libyan-Egyptian War and the Angolan Civil War. Up to 200 KPAF pilots took part in the Vietnam War, scoring several kills against U.S. aircraft. 2 KPA anti-aircraft artillery regiments were sent to North Vietnam as well. North Korean instructors trained Hezbollah fighters in guerrilla warfare tactics around 2004, prior to the Second Lebanon War. During the Syrian Civil War, Arabic-speaking KPA officers have assisted the Syrian Arab Army in military operations planning and have supervised artillery bombardments in the Aleppo area. Service branches, People's Ground Force. The Korean People's Army Ground Force is the main branch of the Korean People's Army responsible for land-based military operations. It is the de facto army of North Korea. The size, organization, disposition, and combat capabilities of the ground force give Pyongyang military options both for offensive operations to reunify the peninsula and for credible defensive operations against any perceived threat from South Korea. People's Navy. The Korean People's Navy is organized into two fleets which are not able to support each other. The East Fleet is headquartered at Chosŏn'gŭl and the West Fleet at Nampo. A number of training, shipbuilding and maintenance units and a naval air wing report directly to Naval Command Headquarters at Pyongyang. The majority of the Navy's ships are assigned to the East Fleet. Due to the short range of most ships, the two fleets are not known to have ever conducted joint operations or shared vessels. People's Air Force and Air Defense Forces. The KPAF is also responsible for North Korea's air defense forces through the use of anti-aircraft artillery and surface-to-air missiles. While much of the equipment is outdated, the high saturation of multi-layered, overlapping, mutually supporting air defense sites provides a formidable challenge to enemy air attacks. People's Strategic Rocket Forces. The Korean People's Strategic Rocket Forces is a major division of the KPA that controls the DPRK's nuclear and conventional strategic missiles. It is mainly equipped with surface-to-surface missiles of Soviet and Chinese design, as well as locally developed long-range missiles. Missile tests: 1993, 1998, 2006, 2009, missiles, Apodong-1, Apodong-2, Worker-Peasant Red Guard militia. The Red Guards is the DPRK equivalent of an ROTC Home Guard National Guard Territorial Army. It is regarded as a part of both the Ministry of the People's Armed Forces and the National Defense Commission, and its service flag enjoys the same status as that of the other services. With units organized from university level down to the village level made of part-time national servicemen and women from all walks of life, it provides the Korean People's Army with a ready available pool of trained reinforcements during both peacetime and wartime deployments. As part of its responsibilities as a national militia, the WPRG also reports to the Workers' Party of Korea's Civil Defense Department. Capabilities. Although the North Korean military once enjoyed a startling advantage against its counterpart in South Korea, its relative isolation and economic plight starting from the 1980s has now tipped the balance of military power into the hands of the better-equipped South Korean military. In response to this predicament, North Korea relies on asymmetric warfare techniques and unconventional weaponry to achieve parity against high-tech enemy forces. North Korea is reported to have developed a wide range of technologies towards this end, such as stealth paint to conceal ground targets, midget submarines and human torpedoes, blinding laser weapons, and probably has a chemical weapons program and is likely to possess a stockpile of chemical weapons. The Korean People's Army operates ZM-87 anti-personnel lasers, which are banned under the United Nations Protocol on Blinding Laser Weapons. Since the 1980s, North Korea has also been actively developing its own cyber warfare capabilities, and as of 2011 has some 1,000 skilled military hackers. The Korean People's Army has also made advances in electronic warfare by developing GPS jammers. Current models include vehicle-mounted jammers with a range of 50 km-100 km. Jammers with a range of more than 100 km are being developed, along with electromagnetic pulse bombs. The Korean People's Army has also made attempts to jam South Korea military satellites. Despite the general fuel and ammunition shortages for training, it is estimated that the wartime strategic reserves of food for the Army are sufficient to feed the regular troops for 500 days, while fuel and ammunition, amounting to 1.5 million and 1.7 million tons respectively, are sufficient to wage a full-scale war for 100 days. The KPA does not operate aircraft carriers, but has other means of power projection. Korean People's Air Force Il-76MD aircraft provide a strategic airlift capacity of 6,000 troops, while the Navy's sea lift capacity amounts to 15,000 troops. The strategic rocket forces operate more than 1,000 ballistic missiles according to South Korean officials in 2010. Although the U.S. Department of Defense reported in 2012 that North Korea has fewer than 200 missile launchers. North Korea acquired 12 Foxtrot-class and Gulf II-class missile submarines as scrap in 1993. Some analysts suggest that these have either been refurbished with the help of Russian experts or their launch tubes have been reverse-engineered and externally fitted to regular submarines or cargo ships. However, Global Security reports that the submarines were rust-eaten hulks with the launch tubes inactivated under Russian observation before delivery, and the U.S. Department of Defense does not list them as active. A photograph of Kim Jong-un receiving a briefing from his top generals on March 29, 2013 showed a list that purported to show that the military had a minimum of 40 submarines, 13 landing ships, 6 minesweepers, 27 support vessels and 1,852 aircraft. The Korean People's Army operates a very large amount of equipment, including 4,100 tanks, 2,100 APCs, 8,500 field artillery pieces, 5,100 multiple rocket launchers, 11,000 air defense guns and some 10,000 manpads and anti-tank guided missiles in the ground force. About 500 vessels in the Navy and 730 combat aircraft in the Air Force, of which 478 are fighters and 180 are bombers. North Korea also has the largest special forces in the world, as well as the largest submarine fleet. The equipment is a mixture of World War II vintage vehicles and small arms, widely proliferated Cold War technology, and more modern Soviet or locally produced weapons. North Korea possesses 700 long-range artillery pieces, a Koksam 170mm howitzers and 240 on multiple rocket launchers, that are capable of bombarding Seoul. Given the city's population of 24 million people, the fear has always been that a preemptive attack on the capital could kill millions and turn it into a sea of fire. However, a study released by the Nautilus Institute shows that the scenario may not be as devastating as previously considered. If the bombardment was focused at military targets in Seoul, some 3,000 people may be killed within a few minutes. Military equipment, weapons. The KPA soldiers are armed mostly locally produced Kalashnikov-type rifles as the standard-issue weapon, notably the Type 87 QBZ-95, Type 68 Ares per byte, QBZ-03. Rifles are designated like the Kalashnikov naming system, but they are named as Type 20, making it more like the Chinese naming system. Aside from AK-type rifles, the KPA would gain some foreign-made weaponry, mostly from China. Chemical weapons. The U.S. Department of Defense believes North Korea probably has a chemical weapons program and is likely to possess a stockpile of weapons. Nuclear weapons. Nuclear tests. On October 9, 2006, the North Korean government first announced that it had successfully fulfilled a nuclear test for the first time. Experts at the United States Geological Survey and other Japanese seismological authorities detected an earthquake with a preliminary estimated magnitude of 4.3 from the site in North Korea, proving the official claims to be true. North Korea also went on to claim that it had developed a nuclear weapon in 2009. It is widely believed to possess a small stockpile of relatively simple nuclear weapons. The IAEA has met with Ri Jae-sun, the Director General of the General Department of Atomic Energy of DPRK, to discuss nuclear matters. Ri Jae-sun was also mentioned in this role in 2002 in a United Nations article. 2006 North Korean nuclear test, 2009 North Korean nuclear test, 2013 North Korean nuclear test, other, Tongri Satellite Launching Ground, Ryanggang explosion, stealth paint, Yongbyon Nuclear Scientific Research Center. Chosōn'gŭl, asymmetric warfare, the launching of Kwangmu NGSANG-3 and Kwangmu NGSANG-3 Unit 2 in 2012. See also, Orders and Medals of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Republic of Korea Armed Forces, Korean People's Army Ground Force, Korean People's Navy, Korean People's Air Force, Strategic Rocket Forces, North Korean Special Operation Force. Notes. References. Bermudez, Joseph S. Shield of the Great Leader. The Armed Forces of North Korea. The Armed Forces of Asia. Sydney, Allen and Unwin. ISBN A1-86448-582-5. Homer T. Hodge. North Korea Euro Unregistered Trademark S Military Strategy, Parameters, Spring 2003, ppA 68 Euro 81, The International Institute for Strategic Studies. The Military Balance 2007. Abingdon, Routledge Journals. ISBN A978-1-85743-437-8. Jane's World Air Forces. Issue 25, 2007. Coulston, Jane's Information Grouper, Saunders, Stephen. Jane's Fighting Ships Volume 110, 2007-2008. Coulston, Janea Euro Unregistered Trademark S Information Grouper, North Korea Country Study. Library of Congress. 2009. Further reading, Bermudez, Joseph S. North Korean Special Forces. Annapolis, Naval Institute Press. ISBN A1-55750-066-5. Boyk, William A. Orders, Decorations, and Medals of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Springfield, Virginia, dbmpress.com. ISBN A978-0-615-19087-7. External links, North Korea Military Political Background, KPA Equipment Holdings, 1, CIA World Factbook. This article incorporates a public domain material from the United States Army document North Korea's military threat.